Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today, we're continuing the 10th canto, first chapter, the Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction, and text 15. Sri Sukha Uvacha Samyak Vyavasati Buddhis Tava Rajarshi Sattama Vasudeva Katayam Te Yajjata Nashtikirati Yajjata Nishtikirati. Hare Krishna. Sri Sukha Uvacha. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Samyak, completely, Vyavasita, fixed, Buddhi, intelligence, Tava, of your majesty, Rajarishi Sattama, O best of the Rajarshis, saintly kings, Vasudeva Katayam, in hearing about the topics of Vasudeva, Krishna, Te, your, Yat, because, Jata, developed, Naistiki, without cessation, Rati, attraction, or ecstatic devotional service. Translation. Srila Sukadeva Goswami said, O your majesty, best of all saintly kings, because you are greatly attracted to topics of Vasudeva, it is certain that your intelligence is firmly fixed in spiritual understanding, which is the only true goal for humanity. Because that attraction is unceasing, it is certainly sublime. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Krishna Katha is compulsory for the Rajarshi, or the executive head of government. This is also mentioned in Bhagavad-Gita. Imam Raja Sayo Vidu. Unfortunately, however, in this age, the governmental power is gradually being captured by third and fourth class men who have no spiritual understanding, and society is therefore very quickly becoming degraded. Krishna Katha must be understood by the executive heads of government, for otherwise, how will people be happy and gain relief from the pangs of materialistic life? One who has fixed his mind in Krishna consciousness should be understood to have very sharp intelligence in regard to the value of life. Maharaj Parikshit was Rajarshi Sattama, the best of all saintly kings, and Sukadeva Goswami was Muni Sattama, the best of the Munis. Both of them were elevated because of their common interest in Krishna Katha. The exalted position of the speaker and the audience will be explained very nicely in the next verse. Krishna Katha is so enlivening that Maharaj Parikshit forgot everything material, even his personal comfort in relation to food and drink. This is an example of how the Krishna consciousness movement should be spread all over the world to bring both the speaker and the audience to the transcendental platform and back home, back to Godhead. Translation, Srila Sukadeva Goswami said, O your majesty, best of all saintly kings, because you are greatly attracted to topics of Vasudeva, it is certain that your intelligence is firmly fixed in spiritual understanding, which is the only true goal for humanity. Because that attraction is unceasing, it is certainly sublime. It's, of course, a very nice topic for nowadays. Prabhupada speaking about the importance of government, people in the government being Krishna conscious. While I was with Prabhupada, I saw this again and again. Just yesterday I saw the video of Prabhupada in Paris. You've probably all seen that video a few times. And Prabhupada would always take the opportunity. I mentioned before, even being invited to these places was not Prabhupada's style. He went out of his way to go to this government building to see the mayor, and some of his staff. Generally, people always came to see Srila Prabhupada. And from the very beginning, things were peculiar. I say they had, as I said, once Prabhupada came back from his morning walk, he was in his rooms. This I learned, talked about that a few classes ago. I learned very early what confinement was, what it was to be kept in your room. What do we call it now when you're quarantined? Yes. As Prabhupada's servant, I was quarantined. But I always marveled with Srila Prabhupada, because we all know, we have some idea of what Srila Prabhupada did on every level. And yet, whenever I was in Prabhupada's room, he was chanting rounds, he was reading his books, he's doing bhajans. And I would think, when does he do all of these things? It was all the time. As I said, a person in Krishna consciousness, everything he did was perfect. And because he was in complete Krishna consciousness, he spread it. He spread Krishna consciousness, thank you, all over the world. The secret was always being absorbed in Krishna Katha. He didn't waste a moment speaking, we would say, prajalpa. I always say Prabhupada used the word gossip. He liked that word gossip. He didn't gossip. It was always Krishna Katha. Reading his books. I said it was so marvelous when Srila Prabhupada left. Think of it, he left here in 1965. And in those years at Radha Damodar Temple, he gave us just the first canto. And I mentioned before, he said the importance of that first canto. He said everything someone needed to become Krishna conscious, he said, I put into the first canto. And then as soon as he got to America, he had his first canto. He was distributing his books. But very soon, what did he start translating? The 10th canto, Krishna book. He gave it to us in a very special way, because he hadn't given us the 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam to get to this point. It was always his desire. But immediately, when I joined in 1971, it was Krishna book, volume 1. It was there, all of Krishna's pastimes. Volume 1 came, volume 2, volume 3. Prabhupada was so eager to show us this supreme person, so we would develop some attraction. Prabhupada's attraction was constant. Everything he did. We're talking about the government. We remember those days in the 70s, 1973, 1974, they started the In God We Trust party. That was the name of our political party. And Prabhupada encouraged everyone up to a point. Up to a point when even one of his sannyasis, this was in 1973, they were very serious. they wanted to put up a political candidate. First-class man, a Brahminical person. So this one devotee, sannyasi, he was in his mid-30s at the time, and he told Prabhupada how important it was to run. He wanted to run for president. We were going to have this party. But he was a sannyasi. So if you see in our history of government, presidents are always married. You always had a wife was there. And he delivered this proposal to Prabhupada. I'm the person to run for president. He spent a half an hour just going around and around me. I was 22 years old, but I could see where he was going. What to speak of Srila Prabhupada, who knew everything, all our desires within our heart, knew everything we were thinking. And he did, at the end of his speech, he said to Prabhupada, you have to be married to be President of the United States. So, I'm a sannyasi, I'm going to be the candidate. Again, I should take my wife. Prabhupada just looked at him. There was a higher principle here than running for this materialistic government. He looked, he said, you're a sannyasi, not your business. He said, not your business. Like he said to his secretary, you're a sannyasi, your business is eat less, sleep less, more Krishna Katha, like Srila Prabhupada. He had everything so regulated. Anyway, he put down the whole party. He could see where this was going. Anything that was a sidetrack. Same thing happened for those of you that know the history. If you don't, you should learn history, ISKCON history. Like they say, if you don't understand history, you're forced to repeat it. So our history, so many things. We had the road show, first transcendental road show. It was very nice. The day I became Prabhupada's servant, he saw the road show in Pittsburgh. He left during the intermission. He didn't even stay for the second half. And shortly after I became his servant, he penned off a letter to those who were running the road show. They were not ordinary people either. It was Vishnu Jan Swami at the time. It had been Kirtanananda Swami who went back to New Vrindavan. So now Vishnu Jan Swami was doing it. And it used to be chanting and dancing and some speaking, some philosophy. But then it gradually, in order to please the audience, they brought in other things, different kinds of dancing, like choreographed dancing. They got off the track. And Prabhupada said, we're simple kirtan people. None of this stuff. He said, we chant, we dance, we play mridanga, we play kartals. Simple. Because our idea is we just want to please Krishna and we just want to hear Krishna's name. He disbanded the whole road show. He disbanded the In God We Trust party. Our business is right here, Srimad Bhagavatam. Particularly right here, to come to this point of the 10th canto, to relish Krishna's pastimes. You know, I've told this story so many times. When I joined, every day my service was reading Krishna book to the devotees during lunch. That was May 71. 1 year later, I was reading Krishna book to Prabhupada in the garden in Los Angeles. Same Krishna book. Prabhupada was sitting there, just like you're sitting here, hearing. Prabhupada would sit and hear. He was perfect. He was the perfect speaker. But he also allowed himself to be the perfect hearer. He would sit and listen to his disciples to hear what they understood, to hear how they were becoming attracted to Krishna. But I had no idea. I had been reading Krishna book. I wasn't his servant. I was just young brahmachari. 1 year in the movement, 1 year in the temple, but I'm reading Krishna book to him in a garden, just like that garden. He was the most attentive listener of everyone. I only realized it when he started laughing and laughing and laughing. And as all I had just said one line where Krishna just killed the demon. Prabhupada went into ecstasy. Laughing and laughing and laughing. Prabhupada he did everything perfectly. There are stages in laughing. There's stages for everything. There's stages in grief. We find that out when someone leaves us. You become angry. First you become, you don't even believe it. You're in shock. Then you become angry. Then the next step and the next. Well, I would see this on the other side with Srila Prabhupada. He would start laughing, but even his laugh was so relishable to see. It would give us ecstasy. He just started laughing, but then he starts shaking because he's laughing and his whole body. And Prabhupada had that little protruding belly. His belly would shake, shoulders would shake. And then tears would start coming down his eyes, laughing tears. And then finally, his whole body's moving and he's slapping his knee. I saw that happen 3 times. I lived for those moments in Krishna consciousness with Prabhupada. I had nothing, no understanding, no attraction, but seeing his attraction to Krishna made you want to do better. That's why we came to Krishna consciousness. I don't know about any of you. I came because I was miserable. I was so miserable in the material world. I was praying to God. But that ecstasy, to see that ecstasy in Srila Prabhupada just by reading from Krishna book. Because there's no difference. Was going on. As I read it, I could see Prabhupada. He was right there. The rest of us were sitting, we're hearing, but Prabhupada's hearing was in the perfect stage, the perfect level. I told you the next day I picked a story about a demon specifically because I thought if I read to him another story about a demon getting killed, he's going to do the exact same thing. Imagine how presumptuous I was. In the temple for a few months, 21 years old, and I never even thought about it, but I considered that if I do this, he's going to laugh. Just like he did, not just laugh. It was a whole experience, his laughing. And I told you, I started reading, and the exact spot I expected him to laugh, he laughed. He knew my desire as well. I didn't know any of these things. He also understood what I was thinking. But at the same time, he relished everything in Krishna consciousness. Everything. And he spent all of his time trying to give us Krishna. But with these people in charge of society, these politicians, the teachers, he would always lecture them every time. Your business is to educate the people. This is what he's saying here. Imagine saintly king, to speak of a president of our country. Now everything is completely topsy-turvy in Kali Yuga. I wonder what will be going on next year. And I think how wonderful it is that Prabhupada trained us up to be quarantined, to be able to sit for hours. You know, our temple president, he has his kirtan every evening, 2 hours every evening for the last 3 months. Govinda Swamis, and they do their japa sessions in the morning. Hundreds of people sitting there chanting japa. We're all quarantined. But we're learning. Huh? It was easy. Prabhupada's business was keeping us busy in Krishna consciousness. That's what he said. He said all of these books to bring us to the point chanting Hare Krishna. He can tell you, Daiva Shakti can tell you, here in Prabhupada's room, walking around, hand in his japa bag, his bead bag. And he goes, Malika. Malika, he would call it his Malika. Prabhupada chanted japas so much. One time we were in Switzerland, Zurich, Switzerland, in this 5-star hotel. It's when they took Prabhupada to Switzerland. It was very bizarre. It was April, springtime, and there was a blizzard. Prabhupada didn't like excessive heat, but he certainly didn't like the cold. It was so cold. He was in his room, his hotel room. We had the next hotel room, myself and secretary. I had given him a massage. When you're traveling, of course, keeping track of things is sometimes a little difficult. Going every place 3 days, 5 days, every week, going somewhere different. Anyway, I had given Prabhupada massage, and I left my bead bag in his room, in his hotel room. So later in the afternoon, I'm in my room, and I'm looking, and I can't find my bead bag. And then I finally remembered, I left it in Prabhupada's room. So I walked into the room, and Prabhupada was sitting in the chair, hotel chair in his room, and he's chanting. And I look, it was my bead bag. He had his hand in my bead bag, and he's chanting rounds on my beads. Hour later, Prabhupada chanted something else, so I went and got my bead bag. Prabhupada's ecstasy. He was in so much ecstasy. He was just chanting, always chanting. Softly, he just chant his japa. He knew where we were headed, and we're very quickly approaching the time we're going to have to take shelter. We don't know what lies ahead. Prabhupada knew what lies ahead. He said so many things. He said all of this hidden agenda, all these secrets. He said everything, he said, your civilization, he said, will be finished. He said your civilization will be finished in 50 years. He said it in 1973. 50 years, he said it in Los Angeles. That means 2013, if you're counting 50 years. 2023, which is a couple years away. So we're very quickly approaching this. Prabhupada was expressing his urgency to us 50 years ago. He was saying, get ready, get your farms, right? He said, your temples in the city, he said they should be provided for by the farms. He said, and then the ghee, make the ghee, you can sell ghee or use the ghee. But he was always, through time, trying to set us up. Govinda Dasi, one of our very original members, said that Prabhupada, he used to make a lot of predictions in the early days. He would say things. And if you look in his lectures, 67, 68, see Prabhupada speaks, says many interesting things, and he goes very deep into Krishna consciousness, very deep. And I think the more time he spent with us, the more time he realized, you people aren't ready. He wrote a letter in 1971 saying, by 1975, all of my disciples will be initiating. He said that in a letter. By 1975, all of my disciples, they'll be extending, they'll be taking disciples. Of course, by the time 1975 came around, sannyasis were walking out the door one after the other. He realized they're not ready. Actually, when he left, he realized we weren't ready. We don't have any more time to get ready. It's time to be ready. It's time to be able to understand my only shelter is right here. That was Prabhupada's shelter. He told me personally in Los Angeles, when you're in anxiety, you chant on your beads very loudly. I said he was in anxiety. He took all his anxiety for Krishna. But he said under any circumstances, we chant, we hear, or we speak. Every time he would bring in disciples into his room. When he wasn't at a temple, he made that place a temple. We would think there were temples, then there was just outside. Prabhupada's mission was always make every home a temple. That's what it's coming to now. You have your home. You've got to know how to make that a temple. You've got to be meditating 24 hours a day. Prabhupada showed us everything. You see Prabhupada cooking. I saw a beautiful photo the other day. Trying to think, it was in Mayapur. Prabhupada's with 3 of his godbrothers. One of them is Sridhar Maharaj sitting next to him. They're all sitting on the floor in Mayapur on the veranda eating it. Pishima's there at the one end. Then there was Sridhar Maharaj, Krishnadas Babaji, Kinchana Krishnadas Babaji was there, Prabhupada was there. And then I saw, right next to Prabhupada was the lid from his cooker, because there was a preparation in there. And then right behind the devotee sitting next to Prabhupada, I could see the rest of the cooker sitting there. Then I could understand Pishima had cooked everything for all these great sadhus. She was sitting there. She wasn't taking prasadam. She was just sitting as everyone was taking prasadam. This is our business. Everything Krishna. Eating Krishna. We're cooking for Krishna. Everything we do. When Prabhupada would see anyone that was responsible for other people, he would tell them what your business is. I told you that one young professor, Prabhupada speaks here, no 3rd or 4th class, has to be 1st class man. And Prabhupada would say that. But he'd say there are no 1st class men. Only these, 3rd class, 4th class. We all know this very well today. So all you have to do is look at any news item. You'll see these countries being run by 4th class. Prabhupada would say 10th class. He told that man, young man, not even 4th class. He said, you're 10th class. Told you, me and Paramahamsa sitting on the side. We would be, Prabhupada scared us. We thought, what is this man thinking? We would become, Prabhupada was so heavy. He said, you have to become 1st class. He said, and the only way to become 1st class is to hear from a 1st class person. Prabhupada's 1st class. Everything. Say every move he made. Just wanted us to become attached to Krishna. So he gave us Krishna book. I actually started out, 1971, I was a big book distributor. For 1 week, I was distributing Krishna books door to door. And it actually was amazingly easy. People back, this was the 70s, 60s and 70s, a lot of hippie types. You would just go in there and show them the Krishna book. As all you had to do was open up the book to the first page and show them where George Harrison wrote in there, all you need is love, Krishna. And they'd see that, and they usually intoxicated, these people, and they'd look at the pictures, Krishna stealing the butter, serpents, and they're looking in the book, and they'd buy the book. It was a wonderful thing. It was only while I was in LA reading Krishna book, and I was distributing Krishna books. Then it was with Prabhupada, he was doing everything. I told you my biggest, so many mistakes. You're with your spiritual master, you're with Srila Prabhupada. Of course, we know everything's the razor's edge. What to speak of being with the deities, or the spiritual master. So many opportunities to make offenses. My biggest offense was I left him. I told him I wanted to preach. Just telling everybody to preach. It's not what I wanted to do. But at the time, after a few years with him, I saw I wasn't attentive. Krishna consciousness is all about being attentive every moment. What is the first principle? Always remember Krishna. Never forget him. That's fanatic. Always remember Krishna. That means always attentive, always conscious. So I said to Prabhupada, I wanted to leave him to preach. Nonsense. Prabhupada knew all my nonsense, and still he kept me. He kept me because I was such a nonsense. I had no other ability. I wasn't going to do anything else. But I told him I wanted to preach. He looked at me. And it was a very special look. It was that compassionate, loving humility. He just looked right into my eyes and said, my preaching's not good enough. Imagine trying to come up with any reason to do something to Prabhupada. What a ridiculous proposal. I thought I could come up with something. And he knew it wasn't the truth. The truth is essential. Have to be honest. That's the first thing Krishna consciousness, we have to be honest with ourselves, not make a show for others. So then he defeated that argument very easily. My preaching not good enough? And then I said, well, Prabhupada, I was in Hawaii. My wife was there. A 6-month-old child I had hardly even seen was there. And I said, I want to stay in Hawaii. Then he looked at me again. He said, I don't like to change my servants. Imagine the mercy. But I couldn't accept it. That mercy's there for all of us. All of the time. You just have to take it. Prabhupada used the simplest analogy with the sunshine. People were always asking for Prabhupada's blessings. Sometimes they come up to me, ask for blessings. I know they think my hand was on Prabhupada's feet, so they always just... That's why they want my blessings. They know many, many years ago it touched Prabhupada. But Prabhupada would say, the sunshine is there. You want blessings, just take it. to step out from behind the cloud. But those blessings are to absorb ourselves in Krishna Katha, in Krishna consciousness. Everything else will be taken care of. Everything will be fine. And the most amazing thing that I see, Prabhupada said once, I can forgive you once, I can forgive you twice. He said, but then you must become. And someone said something, and then Prabhupada said, Vaishnava always forgives. I'm here because I understand it's a fact. Even we leave, under whatever circumstances it might be, to whatever extent, Prabhupada is waiting. Just like he says, Krishna is more eager for us to go back than we are to go back. Same thing for his pure devotee. As soon as he would see someone, they'd come back, big smile on Prabhupada's face. Saw that one devotee in Hawaii, was one of his servants. He had gone away. He was, again, a hippie. Long hair, beard, doing all kinds of nonsense. So we would feel shame. He felt shame. He came to see Prabhupada. He was in the room, 1973. He was in the back of the room. And Prabhupada said, where is he? Called him by name. Where is he? Oh, he's here. Bring him here. Came up and sat down. He's in a pair of swim trunks. It's Hawaii, a little t-shirt, beard, long hair. But he's feeling very fallen, humble. And he offered his obeisances. And Prabhupada looked at him, and all the devotees are in the room. He said, he opened up the LA temple. That's what Prabhupada saw. He said he opened up. He said if not for him, we wouldn't have the temple in Los Angeles. Immediately, Prabhupada just show him his appreciation and just bring him back. I told you, twice I had Grahasta next to me, ex-sannyasi Grahastas. Each time Prabhupada looked at them, he said the same thing. Now you're a Grahasta like Shruta Kirti. They weren't really a Grahasta like Shruta Kirti. They were a Grahasta like Shruta Kirti. He said, do your service that way. Never rejection. Prabhupada never rejected, but he expected some discipline. You come back, you have to do. But once he took someone in, never wanted them to go away. And I realize more and more as time goes by, how much, through all of my time with Prabhupada, how he tried to protect me. Always tried to protect me from Maya's influence. Didn't work all the time. Even Prabhupada, like I say, he had a dozen servants, 10 years. Staying with the pure devotee, it will test you. It will test you. You'll see where you are in your Krishna consciousness. You may think you're Krishna conscious, but spend a month or two with some of these people who 24 hours a day engaged. So we have a few minutes left. I promised the God brother there I'd give some time for questions. Hare Krishna. Anyone have any questions? Comments? Mr. President. Hare Krishna.
When we're kind of speaking with Ramananda Roy, Ramananda Roy was suggesting many ways, follow Chaturvarna, Srishtam, chant the holy name of the Lord and read Bhagavad-Gita, Bhagavad-Gita. It's like here I have people saying, well, I want to come to the temple to join. Well, now's not the right time. If you stay home, if you're chanting the Lord's holy name and reading the books, is that also considered like being in the association of devotees, even though you may not physically be in the proximity of the temple itself, if you're following the chanting and following the instructions as given that you can
Yes.
Otherwise, people think, oh, I need to be there with everybody, group together.
Yes. There's certainly different association over the internet. Of course, it's fine. Like you see our temple president here, every night he does kirtan. And I'm sure he didn't tell you, but he just finished 10 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, reading aloud. 3 years, right? 3 years. This is what Prabhupada gave us. Prabhupada said, one verse, he said, you can spend 1 day on each verse. And if you do that, Srimad Bhagavatam, how many years will it take you? 50 years, he said. He said, you do that in the classroom, 1 day each verse. He said, then as things goes on, you start all over again after the 50 years. Prabhupada even laid out the program for the temple. He said, go on for 50 years doing these verses, and then just start all over again. Imagine being here. It's very nice to get together. All these things could be done at home, individually, by ourselves, the family unit. Prabhupada did it. And that's what he said to me. We go out on a morning walk, then we're in our rooms all day. He taught us how to practice Krishna consciousness alone in your room, 24 hours a day. He taught us how to do that. But get your association. But yesterday we had a little get-together. We were celebrating 2 of the devotees' birthdays. And I saw how important it is to be together with devotees, churning up that nectar. Even hearing the history of ISKCON, hearing the history here in Vrindavan, the early days in Vrindavan, the 1980s, and so many things happened after Prabhupada left here through the 1980s, the progression, but always being protected by Srila Prabhupada. On every level, the association is there, but I can see myself, I need. And we see with our God brothers, we've seen over the decades, some of our Guru God brothers, as soon as you put yourself in isolation from others, it's very easy for Maya to enter in through the head, right? In through the ear, in through the mind. As soon as you cut yourself off from your peers, why? Because they're the only ones that will tell you, hey, that was stupid. Why are you doing that? You shouldn't be doing that. So we have to train ourselves. We should be eager to hear that, not think I'm not going to associate. All he does is criticize me. Huh? Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "They're my friends, my enemies. They're my friends. My friends, all they do is flatter me. They're my enemies. I don't want to be flattered." I know one, I'm going to say Daiva Shakti, she left yesterday because she didn't want anybody talking about her. I know what she was up to. She distributed a Chaitanya Charitamrita set. This is our business. This is these devotees. See from these senior devotees. You see Panchagoda Kirtan, temple president, I see these more attracted to Kirtan than any of this stuff. This is what we do. This is what Prabhupada attraction to Krishna. You have the bookstore here. All want to do is distribute Prabhupada's books. So she got to do that yesterday, set of books. Dinabandhu Prabhu, what do we know about him other than Krishna? So in so many ways, so many different types of activities, varieties of activities to be in Krishna consciousness. And you can see from these, I see from my god brothers, my god sisters, the advancement that they've made is completely absorbed in Krishna. Hare Krishna.
You were speaking that we should be honest to ourselves. So, how we can understand we are honest to ourselves? Sometimes we do so many things. And how we can understand we are being honest to ourselves?
What is that, Dharma? What is the sentence of Gopi Purana done as you have posted? You take, what is it out loud? Say it. You haven't memorized yet?
He said, bhajan really
Begins.
Yes.
Yes.
With ourselves. If you are not up to the mark,
Yes.
then close the door and preach to yourself.
Preach. Right? So until
That
it
is
says
actually the sentence of the
Bhakti Siddhanta. Yes.
But Bhagavad-Gita used to keep it on his table.
That's what it means to be honest. There many times you can't give what you don't have. Huh? Prabhupada could give everyone Krishna because he carried Krishna, had Krishna with him, so he could give Krishna. I can't do that. I can speak about Prabhupada because I was with Prabhupada. You could say, like Prabhupada said, what is the harm? He said, I am ISKCON. If I say, I am ISKCON, I've created ISKCON. ISKCON is my child. ISKCON and I are non-different. He said, what is the harm there? Well, being honest is not, what have you done? We have to examine ourselves based on Shastra, based on the pure devotee, to know what is our true position. Servant of Krishna. So the honesty is to see how much am I actually serving Krishna or serving my senses. And if we're not serving Krishna, then don't make a show. That's what it means. Don't make a show. Better you stay home. You read, you chant, you study until you have something you can give. Because if you don't have it, you can't give it. So that's what it means to be honest. There are certain things up here maybe I don't speak about because I don't have realization there. So I speak about what I'm comfortable. That's what it means. You speak what you know. Prabhupada knew Krishna. All he did was give us Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yes. Thank you.
In the Negative Devotion, chapter 6, Srila Prabhupada mentions about different great principles and details of devotional service. And one here says, it's number 2, in chapter 6 of the devotion mentions becoming initiated by the spiritual knights and learning how to discharge devotional service from
Hare Krishna.
Now, we were mentioning earlier in class about how 1975 sannyasis, or possibly 1977 sannyasis, I felt like possibly that they weren't ready. So, given how the world is, in the past 5, 10, 15 years, our information is just pouring on us constantly, and it's difficult for the general mass of people to accept the detailed principles like the art of bhakti-yoga, whether it be taking Brahman initiation or wearing dhoti, etc., etc. How can that person, have a chance with the art of bhakti-yoga?
Have a chance to...
How can that person have a chance to advance in the art of bhakti-yoga, in the science of bhakti-yoga?
I don't understand. Which person? Or we...
Anybody, whether it be either here from this country or whether it be from America. How can anybody have a chance to advance with the art of bhakti-yoga if it's difficult for them to accept like the detailed principles, Krishna consciousness, whether it be wearing a dhoti, or wearing a brahmin, etc.
Well, Prabhupada answered that one for Gargamuni when he was 17 years old. You know, they both joined 1966. And if you know Gargamuni. So people were bowing down. He said, why should I bow down before you? And Prabhupada said, well, if you do it, then you'll understand. It was one of Prabhupada's phrases. He would say, the proof of to pudding, right? You have to taste it. So that's what he would say. Unless you surrender to the process, you engage yourself in the process, what can you do? He said, you have to try it. That was always his thing. Taste. Right here at Radha Damodar Temple, he told Hayagriva, he said, if you don't have the taste, you have to see what you're doing wrong. Prabhupada explained it as a science. He said, if you don't have a taste in Krishna consciousness, if you're not happy in Krishna consciousness, you have to look. See, that's the honesty. You have to look and see, what am I not doing that I should be doing? Or what am I doing that I shouldn't be doing? You have to be honest. See, and that's where association comes in. Who's going to be, what do we know? Where do we come from? We have to seek association of advanced devotees to help us. You know, practically speaking, I've seen it has effects, you know. Many years ago, anyway, we were doing parikrama around Govardhan. I was ready to give up. I had a godbrother, he came, he embraced me, he said we could do this, and we went on for 10 more days. I was ready to give up doing the service, you know. So that's why I associate, why we're here in Vrindavan. Associate with devotees, take good association. So association is most valuable possession for anyone interested in becoming Krishna conscious. Prabhupada didn't tell us to go to Radhakund and sit there by ourselves. He said, come here in the association of devotees. We all know that one letter he told Nitai. Nitai complained to him. He said, I don't want to sit in these classes, listen to my godbrothers. They have no realization. So he wanted to seek different classes from more elevated souls outside of the temple. And Prabhupada wrote a letter. And he said, so if you're not happy, you don't like, he said, you give the class. Because that's what he's saying. I'm sitting at class, but no one is as good as, no one understands the philosophy like me. So Prabhupada said, then you give the class, but don't go outside. Prabhupada had definite parameters for us. Again, and the closer you got to Prabhupada, the more you realized the degree of the protection he was giving us. But sometimes we couldn't take that protection. Krishna consciousness, that determination, Prabhupada would say, to do it wasn't there. That determination. We can also get that from others. Gradually we get it from all the tests. Gradually we get it from the experience in the material world, all the suffering. Eventually we'll learn our lesson. But the intelligent person, he hears from the pure devotee, he reads from the Shastra. That's all he needs, see? But most of us, we need experience. We go through a lot of experience, and then we see this is what I should be. This actually helps. There have been times when I've realized if I don't chant, I'll go crazy, because this world is just not a nice place. It's impossible to be here. So you take shelter of Krishna. Initiation's a must, Prabhupada said. He said so many things, but he also said that. Otherwise, where's your surrender? See, that's the first thing. How do you surrender unless there's someone to surrender to? And that's not an imaginary person, it's a real person. That's the beginning. All right. Hare Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.